Welcome to Almost Blasphemy with your hosts, Lori Schwilling and McGuire, self-proclaimed advocates for those willing to push the envelope, burst the bubble, blow someone's mind, sweep away the cobwebs of our minds. Acknowledging we don't have any absolute answers, we seek to find questions that might cause one to say, that's almost blasphemy. Welcome to this initial broadcast of Almost Blasphemy. We didn't have to look very far to find our first topic because we found a lot of people looking for this faith. In this time of unrest and uncertainty, especially in the United States, people are wanting to hold on to something they can count on. When even long held belief systems, the Constitution, religious institutions, capitalism, political systems are failing them. Fear and anxiety are settling in, and people are either walking away from what they've known all their lives, or they are at least challenging traditions. Some are church hopping, others are spiritual shopping. Some people are looking for anything they can lean against or to set their gaze upon. Now, some will never let go of an anchor because of fear. To those, we say, you may want to stop listening now. To any who are searching for something, but you can't put a name to it, but are not afraid to take the proverbial leap of faith, Almost Blasphemy is here to say, let's go. Let's jump right into faith. So, what is faith? We're asking you that question. So start taking notes. But dictionary definitions at least provide starting points. So here are a couple straight from our favorite resources, at least one of our favorite resources, Google, which gets its definitions from Oxford Languages. Ah, yes, the Oxford Dictionary, the Holy Writ for all things English. Although Merriam-Webster Dictionary might argue that is almost blasphemy, kind of like when English-speaking Christians argue over translations of the Bible, not understanding that the King James translation was not dictated by God to King James. What? Blasphemy. Anyway, I digress. Back to a definition for faith. Number one, quote, faith is the complete trust or confidence in someone or something, end quote. Complete trust or confidence. If you accept that definition as viable, here's a question. Do you have complete trust or confidence in someone or something? Definition number two, quote, faith is strong belief in the doctrines of a religion based on spiritual conviction rather than proof, end quote. Now, this definition would guide us towards what is known as Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, and so many other world religions. Here's a question. Do you adhere to the doctrines of a religion that you might follow? Do you even know the doctrines of the religion or philosophy you might follow? That is not a judgment question. That's an almost blasphemy question, because this is a safe place for your brain to question your doctrinal expertise without fear of condemnation. How about a biblical definition for faith as a spiritual conviction rather than proof. If you want one of those, one can be found in the letter to the Hebrews, chapter 11, verse 1. Quote, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. End quote. I'm going to repeat that. Faith is, quote, the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things unseen. End quote. And finally, one more definition for faith. A description of faith, rather. Maybe for the mind of a child. Because I remember reading The Little Engine That Could to my children, and they loved for me to read them that book. And the little engine that could said, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. The little engine had faith. Faith is something, and sometimes just because we believe we can and will do something, we can believe something will happen. Faith is sometimes believing in something even if it's impossible. I think I can. So there's some definitions. And then we ask some questions in this first almost blasphemy. Is faith important? It probably depends on who you're talking to. Some people might say, just do it. You don't need faith, just do it. Some people might say, well, you need a plan before you do it, and you have to have faith in your plan. Some people might say, if you don't have faith, you're sure to fail. And some people might say, because today is so bad, without faith, tomorrow might not be worth living for. How important is faith? Again, it depends on who you're asking. If you've got all the money in the world, all your needs are provided for, faith may not be that important. If you do not have a piss to pot in, or a pot to piss in, and you're starving, then faith may be the only thing that keeps you walking towards tomorrow in search of a toilet or a garbage bin to forage through. Why is your faith important? That is a personal question, which we do not intend to answer, especially since we do not have that answer, nor do we want to guide your thinking or persuade you to believe like we do, because we truly think you deserve some brain space to think for yourselves, instead of having to think like those who have been telling you how to think all of your lives. Mommies and daddies, pastors and priests, government officials, teachers, principals, etc., etc. Have you ever thought that they might have been wrong? Why, that's almost blasphemy. Besides, maybe even your faith isn't important. Or maybe your mommy and daddy's faith isn't important. What if you have faith? What do you have faith in? Money, people, trees, nature, animals, weather patterns, the great pumpkin, news sources, political parties, gods, lowercase gods, gods, uppercase gods, Holy Writ. Ooh. Where do you put your faith? In yourself, trusted friends, family, spouse, knowledge. If you put your faith in any of those, have any of those ever let you down? What is, when we talk about faith, a lot of the times we will be guided towards religious faith or philosophies of faith and those types of things. When we are guided towards that, what is the major emphasis of religious faith? Again, this is just to allow you the space to think. What is the major emphasis of religious faith? Is it the collection plate? Butts in the pews? To save souls? To feed the flock? To make followers of some tradition, ideology, theology, philosophy? To support the mission and ministry of said religion? To brainwash people so that they can't think for themselves? Well, now that I've thrown out a bunch of stuff about faith, it's time for me to be quiet for a while and throw it over to Lori, where she's going to maybe push back and throw out some other things that we want you to think about, and then recap our discussion on faith. And so, Lori, what would you like to invite us to think about today?
Thanks, Mick, and welcome to everyone who's participating in our podcast today. You know, we hear a lot today about losing faith. People report that they are losing faith in all kinds of things. People are losing faith in organized religion. They're losing their faith in democracy. They're losing their faith in humanity. And so one of the questions that Mick and I talked about in preparation for this podcast is it possible to live without faith in anything? Can you live without having faith in anything? If your answer is yes, then you may be what we call a nihilist. And that puts you in some pretty prestigious company. Nihilists like Kierkegaard and Nietzsche said, life doesn't have any real meaning apart from what it means for us in the moment. There is no transcendent reality, they said. But my question is, isn't that a kind of faith in itself? Don't nihilists have faith that there's nothing but this life? Well, if nihilism sounds too pessimistic, maybe you are more of a carpe diem person. Seize the day, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. The cavalier, this is a more cavalier approach to life than nihilism, but it's a little more upbeat. Carpe diem recognizes the 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 worth and the value of this present moment, right? Carpe diem says that we should wring every bit of joy and love and goodness from every day because this is the only day that we have, and this is the only thing that really matters. So again, isn't that a kind of faith? A faith that there is goodness and joy and love to be had? in our human experience. So I question whether or not it's possible to live without faith in anything. And that's what makes this topic so important. We need to figure out where our faith lies. Mick has suggested lots of faith: faith in God, faith in ourselves, in our own intellect, our own intuition, our own talent, faith in the government, faith in other people. So let's pivot to religious faith. My upbringing in the faith has been in the Christian church. And I will confess that I called myself a Christian for many years without ever studying or really learning about the teachings of Jesus. And I have met many people who call themselves Christian who will say that they believe that Jesus was a good person, but they don't believe that Jesus was divine. Well, guess what? Believing that Jesus was a good person doesn't make you a Christian. Muslims believe that Jesus was a good person. Jews believe that Jesus was a prophet. Even some agnostics and even some atheists will say, yeah, Jesus was a good guy. Believing that Jesus was a good person does not make you a Christian. Being raised in the Christian faith doesn't make you a Christian. Attending a Christian church doesn't make you a Christian. Being a Christian means learning about and making a commitment to follow the teachings of Jesus. And that's not something to be taken lightly. Christian is not an identity that we should just throw around because it's socially acceptable. So here we are, back to where we started. What is faith? And where is your faith? And here is a final, almost blasphemous thought for today. It's okay if you think about this and decide that you're not a Christian. It's okay to not be a Christian. It's okay to not be religious. Some of the world's greatest thinkers were not religious. Being non-religious doesn't mean we don't have faith. In fact, admitting that we're not religious may be our first step toward a faith that we can truly embrace. We invite you to share your thoughts, your questions, and your comments with us. Again, we're just asking the questions. We don't have answers. So think about it. What does faith mean to you? Do you have faith? In what? If you adhere to a particular religion, when or why did you commit to it? Those are hard questions. Your answers may feel almost blasphemous. But if so, you're in good company. Thanks for joining us for this first edition of Almost Blasphemous. We're glad that you joined us. We're glad to get you thinking, and we hope to see you next time.